Welcome, everyone, to another episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. I have a special guest for us today from the practitioner world. Do you want to hear who it is?
Yes, we have company.
Yes, we have company. So today I'm excited for us to have a little bit of a chat with our special guest, Keith Christensen, who I know as a former senior vice president of HR corporate services at CVS Health. Keith, glad you're here.
Yeah,
Can you
welcome.
tell us a little bit about your background and where you come from?
Hi, Julie. Hey, Pete. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Longtime CVS employee, longtime HR practitioner, or it got to be a long time all of a sudden. Um, I live in the great state of Rhode Island, although Rhode Islanders will tell you I've only been here 20 years, so I'm not really a Rhode Islander, native to New Jersey, and I'm happy to join you today.
Welcome.
Keith, when we have guests on, and then we'll let Pete get to the news and kick us off in news, but we always ask folks where they started in
Yeah.
HR and payroll. And was that at CVS or did you start even before then?
It was before then. I started in a temp job at what was then Fleet Bank, now part of Bank of America. And I was doing data entry, and it just happened, it had nothing to do with HR. It just happened to be managed by the HR team. And that led to my first regular job, which was as an HR call center rep, which exposed me to a ton of different questions, including benefits and payroll.
Oh, that's
Wow.
awesome. So that's an interesting start, but then what kept you in HR? How did you end up staying in HR all these years?
So there were so many different things to learn, and what I found over the course of time is you have a chance to drive business results, impact people in a positive way. I will tell you my relationship with payroll is a little more complicated because the
I think
minimum
everyone's is.
the minimum expectation for payroll is perfection. You can never exceed expectations if you're a payroll practitioner. You can never do better than pay everybody right and on time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's pretty intimidating as a practitioner when you're perfect and that's just meets expectations.
That's a great point. Yeah, everyone's relationship, I think, is complicated with payroll. It really is. I love that.
But
Man.
my friend always likes to say though, payroll or at least pay is a big part of why most people go to work.
Oh, yeah.
And it is your report card. So part of it that I love is that every week, every 2 weeks, every semi-monthly, you get a report card. That's where you see everything that the whole HR function did or didn't do well. Comes out as a report card audited by thousands of employees.
Yeah. You sound like me. I used to say that to my team. We'll find out on Friday how we did.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in your day to day now, are you over payroll as a leader today?
So I left CVS at the end of 2022, but prior to that, yes, I was over
Yeah.
payroll. I was over payroll for my last 7 years at CVS.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, thank you for the service of that. We appreciate you.
Listen, Keith, I just want to brag on that a little bit, right? And call out because the magnitude of what happens at CVS is so huge. I don't know if people just naturally would associate with that. CVS is a Fortune top 10 company, right? And so when you're leading the HR organization there, that's like 500 or more HR employees that are there in a huge budget, right?
Yeah, so the budget was over 100 million, leading the HR shared services, talent acquisition, employee relations teams as part of the bigger HR org. And
Yeah.
so we were paying in our case 320,000 people a month, couple times a month. We were hiring over 100,000 people a year, and we were doing acquisition integration pretty much on a regular basis, anywhere from 50 to 50,000 people.
Yeah, I think like Pete, if people just think about that, because a
Yeah.
number of folks that start in an HR or payroll role might start in a smaller organization, and as their careers evolve over time, they find themselves taking on more responsibility or working with larger and larger organizations, and like I don't know if you get much larger than that.
That's why my comment in the beginning about the complexity at CVS, I was being kind of funny because I have some familiarity with the company, and you're right. I mean, you guys, I mean, just digesting those numbers, that's an enterprise in and of itself, HR, for an enterprise that is sizable. And I can imagine the moving parts that have to go into that. So yeah, I have so many questions about what you've learned. It's incredible.
Well, you asked what kept me there.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
kept me in HR, and when you go into an org like that, there is a new challenge, something exciting and different to do every day. So if you're curious and you like to do different things, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I'm sure there's always initiatives going on as well, right? Keeps you on your toes.
Exactly. Well, hey, I know we'll get back to that. Why don't we, since we do news up front, Pete, why don't we just kick out a few news items and then we'll get back to some digging into some cool conversation with Keith on leave, absence, and how that's such a pain point for payroll.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, my favorite topic, leaves. But let's talk about some news. So a few things around the space this week or last week. Daily Pay, good friends at Daily Pay, now valued at 1.75 billion. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to Earned Wage Access, not just Daily Pay. I mean, I think they were the pioneers of it, and obviously, created an entire market that is, I think, just standard now in the payroll picture. And from what I'm learning and seeing more and more, it's becoming part of the benefits offering for organizations. We were just talking about this yesterday on the Source by Daily Pay, where we were doing a webinar with some leaders, and that came up about how it's part of annual enrollment now for some companies. So that's very, very refreshing. But yeah, so $175 million in funding they received. That brings their valuation now to $1.75 billion. Really impressive. And they also used some of that money this week to announce a big investment, 24 million pounds sterling in Northern Ireland, creating 293 jobs. And I think I read somewhere it's going to bring something like 12 million in salaries to the economy. So they're really hyped on that. Their comments on that were, they see it as a very key strategic investment point for tapping into talent. But also, as you know, they've been eyeing new markets. If you checked out their that funding story, and new markets means beyond the U.S., right, where they're already very dominant. So congratulations to Daily Pay and congratulations to Earned Wage Access. So I know you were at the Ceridian SKO this week, and they had some big news. So want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. And in fact, you had caught it. It was actually announced in the market here just before I spent a little bit of time with them this week. And that was Ceridian's acquisition of a Denmark based company called Illumi that
Yeah.
does end to end LMS solution, really, right? So that got announced just before this week and was on our radar. Illumi does a learning platform with content and people development and skills intelligence and employee communications functionality. So I did, a little bit of digging around. They were very excited about this kind of new relationship at Ceridian, which is rebranding in a short 8 or 7 days to Dayforce. Their product name. They'll be rebranding formally, but just a little bit more context around the Illumi thing. So it's the same platform. They use the same platform foundations, right? And when Ceridian brings somebody in, they really integrate it into the platform itself. So pushing two of the same foundational platforms together, they think they'll have ready in about 6 months. We heard that learning is kind of their fastest growing area of request from their customer base. So, obviously this was a strategic move in the works for them. And it will include some selling of content. So even though it's an LMS type platform, there's content involved there. It'll be tied to the AI with the skills through that skills engine and skills intelligence. And when you think about employee communications area, I think they're just on the verge of looking at some really cool social things that tie into employee communications, a community, and that sort of thing. And so there's a whole lot I think that we'll see of noise made around this particular acquisition. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a nice compliment to all the stuff they released with the skills area, and I think just indicative of them, maturing further up market and bringing their talent in line with their other, base capabilities. So yeah, good stuff. Good, very cool.
you got another one still, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Compliance is back in the news. Another acquisition. The Miratech Group has acquired Mineral, which I think a lot of folks might be familiar with. It's a compliance platform that was integrated to a lot of the mid and maybe down market HCMs for compliance support for organizations out there, operating on these HCMs. And so they have also done kind of a two-way, three-way merge, if you will, with Centrio. So Mineral and Centrio, have now combined under the Miratech Group flag. And so really a very comprehensive suite of tech-enabled compliance capabilities now. Mineral was more on the compliance platform and support, where Centrio was similar, but it also brought more of some learning and capabilities around training for compliance. So, yeah, I think this is very indicative of how important compliance is. And I think you're going to see more of this type of mergers and acquisitions as we go through the year, for a number of different reasons. But I think M&A is going to be back this year for sure. So cool to see some of these things getting together and powering up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is that it, or you got any other tricks up your sleeve there?
I got two things. I got two things. Number one, I want to say a big shout out to Ramco. They've got something really big coming up. They've got everybody's interest peaked. I know I've been begging them for a view of it, and so they've been keeping it very close to the vest. And I'm hoping we'll see it soon. But watch out for that. There's something coming, and if you know them, they always push the pace on innovation around payroll and HR. So I'm really, really excited to see what they're doing.
Hey, you're reminding me. I know what your
Yes.
next thing is. It's related to a guest that we had earlier on the show who has had
Yes.
a landmark thing come out to market, and super congrats there. Tell us what it is.
Yeah. Our good friend Jim Cole, the payroll artist, congrats on his new book. Right, he's Humanoid Resources, the 30, 60, and 90-day guide to the first 90 days of work, featuring Jim's amazing art. And I think you should check it out. It's Jim's a great artist. He's done a bunch around the community. He's doing more, and yeah, shout out to Jim. Congratulations on that.
Awesome. You did
Yeah.
beautiful, amazing work. Cool.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk leaves, though. I want to get
Yeah.
into this with Keith because we've talked leaves here on these episodes before, and you know how I feel.
Yeah, for sure. And Keith, I'm so excited to start to talk to you about leaves because I did a payroll survey, and Pizzaware, he helped me with it as well. That really clearly showed that leaves and leave in absence was the number one top pain point for payroll. And we all know it's messy. It's totally messy and sticky. And as you and I were speaking about a number of things, I came to understand that you have a pretty robust experience with leaves. So I just can't wait to dig into this with you.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been. It's a little surprising for me to say, but I've been working with leave of absence since probably 2003. It's been a minute.
That's right. Well, you know what? Before we even jump into the leaves, I just wanted to, like you were at CVS in the heart of the whole COVID-19 thing, right? And in many ways, when COVID-19 happened and just the earth came to a grinding halt, that was supposed to be a 60-day or a short term type of a thing. And it became a much longer thing. And not only was CVS right in the middle with healthcare and everything else, but also the idea of, figuring out how to let workers work and stop work and start work is everything that leaves about. So, like, what happened in COVID-19? How did that all play out for you? What sorts of things, inside view, might you have for us?
Hey, it's Libby DeLucian. If you're sick of business advice that sounds cute but doesn't actually move the needle forward, this one's for you. The Libby DeLucian podcast is where we go one layer deep. No gurus, no glitter, just straight up unfiltered talk about scaling a business, running a household, and holding on to your sanity in the middle of the chaos. If you're the bottleneck in your business or in your own life, I'll show you how to fix it. Simple, tactical, and one layer deep every time. Let's go visit libbyd.com and check out our podcast today.
Yeah, so that was a humbling, gratifying, tiny bit intimidating time. All those things at once. Of course, it was a time of great pride in terms of working for CVS, and I think how CVS showed up as a company, really living its purpose. So, that was a great part of the response. The need from people and business was just so great, and all the stuff you didn't know was so high that it kept you pretty grounded. There's a couple of things that stand out for me. When the first schools started shutting down, I think Philadelphia and Ohio, our colleagues started calling the HR COVID call center that I was responsible for, just begging for help. And when I would talk to our call center reps and debrief with them, some of them were temps who had only been with us for a couple of days, and they'd start crying when they talked about how people were desperate for support. So we were able to stand up a backup childcare plan in a week, literally from the first time someone said, "Hey, can we do something about childcare?" to the day we announced it. It was a week. And we were able to help 15,000 people find childcare, pay for childcare. That felt great. Um, the organizational togetherness, I think, was incredible. So as we were running this call center, we literally stood it up in 24 hours. We had no people sitting around waiting to take calls. I got calls from the people who ran our healthcare business. So over at Aetna, I got calls from people in PBM and Caremark saying, "Hey, what do you need? How can we help? Do you want us to give you 50 people? Do you need supervisors? Do you need quality assurance?" We got call forecasting support. So all across the organization. And remember, this happened about a year after CVS acquired Aetna. So an organization that was still coming together, and I think it came together fabulously across lots of lines, and I felt it personally. So that was great. We needed to build a, a vaccination tracking tool, or we hoped to buy one. And what we found was we didn't see anything in the market that met our needs. So B Swift, which was at that time part of CVS Health and was our benefits administrator, they said, this sounds a lot like dependent verification. I bet we could build you one.
Mhm.
And they did. So
Yeah.
and they built the product for us so that we could track whether or not our healthcare colleagues were vaccinated once the vaccine came out. And then it was a product B Swift started selling in the market to other customers as well. But the collaboration across the company was fantastic. There were people I was close with before who I became even closer with. There were people I didn't know previously who I now count as close friends and really help support you through it. And the other thing I'll say COVID did is, for me, it really changed my outlook, because as a lifelong back office person, as most payroll and HR delivery practitioners are, our work was so close to the business and to the customer during this time, and to the employee. So if we didn't have enough people, stores wouldn't open. So hiring was incredibly important. When we started doing vaccinations, we had to hire 15,000 new immunizers in a matter of weeks. So that was a great feeling to contribute so directly when your team was hiring the people who were vaccinating your grandmother, which was literally true. The engagement from my team in 2020 and 2021 was off the charts, and it wasn't because of the leadership. It was because there was such a close connection to the purpose of the company and helping people. So as I look ahead, I certainly want to, that feeling of directly impacting the business is something I want to keep having in my career.
Yeah. That's what more HR, I think, needs to experience, is that, right? Like just that unity, but also that impact. And I don't know that everybody gets to experience it that way.
Yeah, right in the heart and the center of it. And like everything, if you think about everything that folks lived and learned from the vaccines and the call centers and the tracking and immunizations going on, but then there was all the special pay associated with it, right? I mean, we have a lot of folks that listen from a pay perspective. Many industries in healthcare had hazard pay, and trying to get certain people to work and incent them and reward them for doing work when everything else is shutting down. And like you were right in the heart and the thick of it. So
We
just
were, and
inspiring.
we had a lot of conversations about how to pay people, and how to thank them, how to incent them, how to reward them. And if you listed 10 things, I'd probably say yes, we did that in some way, shape, or form in some part of the organization. So it wasn't one solution. And as you said up top, right, we thought COVID was going to be 30, 60, 90 days, and I don't know what it turned out to be, 12, 18 months. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of different things we tried through that time. But I think throughout it, it was making sure through pay and other ways that our colleagues knew we cared about them, and that they felt supported.
Yeah. You, Amazon, right? I mean, there are a handful of folks that couldn't shut down and had to keep the wheels turning in unique ways. So just a cool story.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
How about let's shift a little bit to leaves and talk about leaves today. I know that's as sticky as payroll, and in some cases, so kind of a deep topic. But one of the things I know about you, Keith, from us talking and knowing each other over the years, is I think that there are 100 ways to skin the cat in leave management, and I'm pretty sure that you have tried all of them, right?
We have, or we've at least tried to try them all.
There you go. There you go. And the world has changed so much in this in administration and technology enablement and tracking, in that same period of time. So what was it like? Where did you first start touching leaves, and what was the environment like that, from an administrative perspective?
Yeah, so it was a very different world, right? So 2002, 2003, I was asked to take over the leave administration team. It was an in-house team that was using a homegrown Lotus Notes based tool to administer leaves for what was then 110,000 employee population. And look, it was just a database, right? It was a tracking system. There was no automation whatsoever.
Mhm, mhm. That's where so many people start, right? And honestly, it's where many organizations still are today.
Yeah, and I can understand why, right? You see why you need something to start with, um, and then what I'd say is it's just gotten so complex, and happily the tools in the marketplace I think have really evolved since 2002, um, from where we started with our first attempt to put in a new system to where we got to over the last few years. I think there's a lot more choices for people who are doing leave administration today, happily.
Yeah, yeah. And you, like others, I think, early on in the leave journey, or somewhere in the leave journey, it became very popular, and it was a common topic for folks to say, you know what, this is messy. This is really messy. I don't really enjoy it. Can't we just outsource this so that somebody else can deal with this mess? What was your experience? I mean, like, you ended up in those discussions as well, right? So how did that play out for you?
I did. So, the first time someone said it to me was 2003. And then, but really in 2005, we did some serious due diligence. Three drivers, right? Better technology.
Mhm.
We were looking for a purpose built tool that would help with compliance, efficiency, and communications beyond just tracking.
Right.
Access to more expertise. And I think this is a really big one. I'm sure this comes up when you talk about outsourcing anyway, but for leave of absence, um, having the expertise in house isn't always easy. So we were certainly looking for someone who had the expertise. And to give you perspective, when we started that outsourcing journey in 2005, we had one employment lawyer for the whole company. It was soon became two. Um,
Okay.
right, supporting all of our HR legal needs from an internal perspective. So as you think about LOA expertise and kind of figuring out how different things fit together, we had limited internal support. So the idea of having an outsourced partner who had great expertise was very appealing. And then the last part was between 2002, when I took over leave administration, and 2006, when we signed an agreement to outsource it, our employee population grew 50% off of a 100,000 person base.
Wow.
And my headcount in leave of absence did not grow anywhere close to 50%. So the reality is we were never going to get the headcount we needed internally, or certainly not at that time. We weren't going to get the headcount we needed to keep up. So an outsourced partner was very appealing in that regard.
Yeah, that's I wanted to ask you that along the way, and that sort of answered my question for your case. But I don't know, maybe Julie, you can say, like, what with leaves, like, where's the inflection point, or the point at which you say you need a partner? Like, is it volume? Is it complexity? Is it, like, what size of the organization? Like, obviously you had a specific need. You have mass volume, obviously, but what about just for the average company, Julie? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so there's definitely a volume play, and I think now more than ever, some of the question is that volume concentrated or is it decentralized, right?
Hmm.
Because usually, we'll hear, key volumes. It's in the hundreds of leaves, right? That
Yeah.
that you need to have the type of volume to be looking at that, and at the same time, maybe that volume isn't so big if you're concentrated in one state, right?
Yeah.
Because the complexity just across states has been huge. The other thing that I think was happening in that same time frame that Keith was talking about is that, a lot of leaves were kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? So in decentralized environments, we have HR generalists at the time, or business partners that are kind of handling leaves locally without the right type of technology to make things visible. When you start doing things centrally and bringing in technology and establishing groups, all of a sudden you know, like what you thought was 100 leaves turns into 1,000 leaves because they were just off the radar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Look, I personally have not seen a leave. I mostly worked with bigger organizations when it came to leaves in my payroll adjacent solutioning days and transformation days. And I never seen it easy for anyone. And I don't know that there's a lot. I mean, I do know that there are folks that do it well, firms that do it well out there, but there's not a lot of options for outsourcing it entirely either. If I understand correctly, there are some good solutions, but it's not like there's an abundance like payroll or something else. So this stuff is hard.
Yeah, and I think as with anything, you have options, you know, more complex options that evolve. But Keith, I think you were talking about outsourcing, like the whole thing, right? Like the services and the technology together, like in an HRO arrangement where you're shifting that responsibility to someone. And today, as has happened with all of HR, you can do bits and pieces or parts. You can just look for a tool or enabling technology. You can get select services or full and comprehensive services. And so the whole landscape of what you can even do with leaves or any other part of HR has just gotten expansive.
Are you tired of talent and HR podcasts that sound like corporate training videos? Same. Talentless is the no-fluff show about hiring, leadership, culture, and what's actually going on in the world of work. Talentless is a podcast for recruiters by recruiters. Hosted by Desiree Goldie and Ashley King, they're smart, occasionally salty, and never afraid to say what everyone else is thinking. Listen wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe at talentlesspodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Stephen Rothberg.
And I'm Jeanette Leeds.
And together, we're the co-hosts of the High Volume Hiring Podcast.
Are you involved in hiring dozens or even hundreds of employees a year? If so, you know that the typical sourcing tools, tactics, and strategies, they just don't scale.
Yeah. Our bi-weekly podcast features news, tips, case studies, and interviews with the world's leading experts about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to high volume hiring.
Make sure to subscribe today.
Yeah, right. So we ended up signing to outsource this under what I'll call a traditional full service multi-tower HR BPO, the kind you don't see very often in the marketplace anymore. So we were moving payroll, HR technology, HR admin, ben admin, leave admin, all to one player.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't see that an awful lot today. And when I say one player, it was one master services agreement. There was a subcontractor who was going to be doing the actual leave administration. And I'll tell you, you know, that was sort of part of the journey, part of the learning. But during the preparation to outsourcing, probably some of the real there were some benefits to just the prep period, the getting ready period. So pulling together all our documentation of existing policies, procedures. So you mentioned there's a lot of companies when they centralize, they don't know how many leaves they're really seeing. They also might not know how many policies they have or what their procedures are.
That's right. And I bet they weren't all the same, were they?
No, they definitely were not. We also found some people who were very strong who suddenly had an interest in LOA. So as we were doing the work to transition, we had an influx of talent, and that proved to be really important for us. And then we also started to see more support from legal and other parts of the company bringing internal expertise, which was also important.
Imagine saying you have an abundance of leave talent. That's amazing, Keith. That's once in a million. That's a unicorn moment, right?
Well, that's been so it was the seeds, Pete. It was a journey in the making, right? So
Oh yeah.
I'll spoil it. The outsourcing never actually happened.
Oh.
We never got to live.
Oh, failure to launch.
So yes, right. So we had some good learnings along the way, and really it's simply right. It was a complicated relationship from the beginning. The overall relationship wasn't going well.
Yeah.
And the implementation was going poorly. Part of the problem was the system we were going to go on wasn't actually built yet.
You mean a vendor sold vapor?
Well,
What?
I would say a
What?
vendor sold a work in progress.
Watch your mouth, Keith. That this never happens. What are you talking about?
And then the
Oh,
implementation methodology was kind of a cousin to where where the technology was in development. So the implementation methodology was pretty immature. The moment that
yeah.
stood out was that they produced leave letters from the test environment and mailed them. And we learned this one day when a 65-year-old employee called us and said, "I love the maternity leave letter I received
Oh
today,
my God.
but I'm not
Yeah.
sure you meant it for me." um,
Oh,
so it was one of those moments. So it was a fraught process that
yeah.
ultimately the maturity wasn't there for us to outsource. So in the meanwhile, you talk about talent, Pete. We had gone from our staff was down to 4 regular employees because as people left, we just backfilled with temps. So we had 4 CVS employees and 19 temps administering leave.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, but the people who were doing the implementation, a couple of them had gotten strong and agreed to join the team as we decided to keep it in house and rebuild the function. Um, that was the seeds for us having the right talent. In fact,
Yeah.
one of those people I'm thinking of in particular, it took us another couple of years to decide she should lead the function. Um, she's been a key to all the progress CVS has made in the leave space over the last decade. She's fantastic. Along with her manager, they've done a great job in the space.
Yeah, that's great. And it's hard, man. This stuff is very complicated. And like Julie said, often there's so many moving parts and not everybody even knows about all those moving parts, right? We used to find out about things in payroll all the time that no one knew anybody had agreed to or where did this come from? And it would always pop its head up whenever, we would, especially when we were doing system conversions, it would rear its head like, hey, we didn't get our report or, we didn't get our, this process didn't happen. It was like, well, no one told anyone. So yeah, it's a gnarly process for most companies.
And Pete, maybe I'm the only one. I'm a little bit of a geek this way, but I think if you went back and listened to what Keith said about that journey and what
Hmm.
they found and how they didn't even know what policies they had, right? Like all this learning that goes into trying to get to a harmonized leave solution, outsourced in this case, that's a global payroll journey. Or even a
Yeah.
domestic payroll journey with multiple disparate locations or business users. I mean, it's the same activities happening when you have something really complex and hairy and compliance driven that is decentralized and needs to come together in a more harmonized, efficient way. I mean, leave, payroll, fill in the blank, right, for
Yeah.
what it is. But it's very much something that folks get exposed to in some functional way, and then learn and build skills that they can apply to their career long skills in this
Oh yeah.
space.
Yeah. It's a Rubik's cube, right? You're always, yeah, moving parts. You're right. It's very, very, very similar to a global payroll transformation type process. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so let's take it along. Like just as the rest of the market emerges, Keith, then technology got a little fancier, right?
It
Over
did,
time.
and it was important for us. So we went out to market. Once we said we were going to keep doing it ourselves, we really needed to get off Lotus Notes.
Mhm.
So we bought Nucleus from I forget whether they were Hewitt, Aon Hewitt. They were one of the two at the time, but we made a decision to select their Nucleus platform. Great implementation partners, good implementation. Um, really helped us to start to automate some things and improve our efficiency and the experience. So that was a big step forward for us, um, as we think about our team.
Most folks, when they hit that point, have to go out and evaluate providers and players and find the best one, and then sign up for them. But at your scale, I can see how you would go find the one you like and then just buy them. And then maybe to come full circle a little bit, technologies are out there, but I think you then had some experience with kind of end to end, right? Like you go through all of these gyrations and different models and different delivery services. But at what point in time did you have some experience stepping back and going, I don't know, let's look end to end and see the experience from colleagues, and when did that come into play and how did that become?
So that really took a minute, and it was so it was something that came frankly out of COVID. because the leave team was at the heart of administering COVID. And, in many ways, COVID administration nearly broke us. Um, so COVID reminded us we still had more work to do. During COVID, we finished integrating our leave processes for the Aetna population, and we moved to a new platform. So we moved to a SaaS solution with AbsenceSoft, which again, great partner, great implementation. They did a lot of listening during the implementation, where they added functionality to the platform for us. So we had this sort of table set, but COVID sort of arrested everything for a while. And coming out of COVID, I think COVID told all of us that we needed to refocus on the employee experience, or reminded us, and made that a much more of an organizational priority. So coming out of it, we did a full assessment starting from the employee experience. And I'm sure you're not surprised that when we went and asked and did the focus groups, that our colleagues told us we had a lot of opportunity to get better. And
Absolutely.
and that was the filter we used. And I would say this talks easy, does hard, but if you really consistently go back to it as your North Star, it drives good decision making. So it drove our org structure, it drove process, policies, communication, education. It drove all of it, right? And I think so, for example, for org structure, we reorganized our teams into pod structures, so that if you're calling about maternity leave, you're going to go into a group of case managers who handle nothing but maternity leave. And we found a couple big areas like that and built around pods there. So while you do get some efficiency as the case managers become more knowledgeable, it really was about providing the right experience. The other thing we did from an org structure perspective that proved to be huge is we hired a dedicated trainer. And that has meant a ton for us, because the leave space isn't standing still, right? We're talking right now, somebody else is dreaming up a new parental leave law in some state or city. So having access to retraining really helps you to operate at scale. It also helps you to continuously improve to better serve your customer.
Yeah. Everything that I hear, Keith, as we talk, I could replace leaves and the complexity with leaves with any of the other complex functions that we deal with in payroll or HR, and the whole idea of looking at it through the lens of process and end-to-end experience has been, definitely a heightened approach since COVID and coming back to work. So no surprise, I guess, right? That we would be looking at leaves through the lens of experience and end-to-end journeys as much as everything else we're trying to look at in HR and payroll through experience.
Yeah, that's always been my big complaint. Julie, we've talked about this. Keith, I feel like it's not like there aren't systems that handle leaves. There's plenty of systems that do that. What I don't feel like we do a good job of is the orchestration around that and all the ancillary things that get triggered by leaves. That's what I think we've got to improve for people, and make it not such a painful experience, right? And the practitioner too, but mostly the end recipient of it.
Yeah, and I think it requires you to, when you embrace it, it requires you to do things that maybe are counterintuitive to what you thought in the past. So it turns out you make the employee's life better, and you make, frankly, your practitioner life better if you communicate more and you increase your contacts with colleagues during the process, right? So we added contact steps. Said differently, we added work, and what it ended up doing was reducing work and improving customer satisfaction. And I think it some of this is a little rewiring of the brain. So I'll pick on policies. You're
looking for the inside scoop on payroll? Whether you're a payroll pro or just curious about your paycheck, we've got two podcasts you cannot miss. It's About Payroll delivers the latest trends for payroll pros, and It's About Your Paycheck is here for employees, breaking down pay and rights in simple terms. Two great shows, two great hosts, and endless insights to keep you informed and empowered. Subscribe now and elevate your payroll knowledge. Brought to you by Work Defined, where payroll meets people.
there's a lot of policies everybody has around leaves, and I think one of the questions we need to ask is, do I really need that one? Like, if that one is intended to save me 5 cents, does that make sense? Or can I simplify in the interest of making it easier for my colleagues to understand it and easier for my team to deliver it and explain it?
Yeah. It almost
Uh,
sounds like you're picking your battles, so to speak.
yeah, exactly. Right, because you don't always get the return on some of those things you think you do. There's bigger philosophical questions like, hey, we don't want a person to make more for not working than they make for working.
Yeah.
When you talk interplay of state disability rules with your company disability rules. But overall, if you can make it simpler, we made it simpler. In simpler, not for us, but simpler for the colleague.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love your comment on counterintuitive and sometimes moving in those counterintuitive ways, because as things like leave administration get more and more complex, you end up finding more and more specialization, right? To be able to handle and understand compliance and all of the complexities that apply. And yet the experience gets, requires you to take the complete opposite end, right? So the more that leave complexity and compliance gets specialized and sits in a leave team, which sits in a COE or a special part of the organization, the less in tune they are with the mechanics of a status change that's triggering a leave and how that data needs to flow and who it goes to and how it relates to intake or how it triggers other things.
Right. So we did a couple things around that. So one is, um, we put some emphasis on communication and education. So we created videos to help people understand their roles in the leave process, including importantly managers and employees, because they're the ones who often have those kickoff activities. Um, and then I know, Julie, that payroll always near and dear to your heart for how to look at this from a payroll perspective and get the flow better with payroll. We went back to the basics. We did end-to-end process mapping and review that included everybody under the sun. So everybody who has a role in leave admin, whether it's workers comp or it's payroll, the disability providers, we brought them all together in those exercises and got clear on the roles and responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see that happening an awful lot today. But if it is actually triggered or initiated by a leave team, right? That's their bread, that's their day to day. They think about that from the perspective of the leave team and the leave activities and the providers that are supporting them in that activity, and maybe aren't as easily inclined to go into including payroll and IT and the employees and manager voices, right? And so that's where you can make things super efficient for 60% of your end to end and forget about the stuff that might be causing all the noise.
And this is the benefit of having great people, and the leave talent, where when your leaders are thinking about how to create a great colleague experience, they do think more holistically, and they stop thinking that's a payroll problem because the colleague doesn't see it as a payroll problem,
Right.
right? The colleague just sees it as the company didn't pay me right, and my leave didn't happen right. So when your leadership takes that same attitude, they think it's their job to figure out that last 40%, even if it's not delivered by their team.
How about what kind of metrics or what have you used over the course of this multifaceted journey to measure success? Is it how many leaves, how long folks are at? I mean, what sorts of things have you seen be effective metrics?
Yes, so the big one is so for formal metrics, it's just getting rolled out. So that they're finishing the journey with colleague satisfaction surveys, and that will be the real measure, and there'll be corresponding manager satisfaction surveys. So those are going to be the key measures. The informal measures were, hey, how do we look from an executive complaints perspective? Um, because the culture, especially if you think about coming out of COVID, where there was so much emphasis on um, caring for people and taking care of CVS's customers and patients. The culture is very much one where our colleagues, if they don't feel like they're being cared for by the company, they let our executives know. And we've seen a significant drop in executive feedback since we implemented the changes. But the more formal measure will be around satisfaction surveys and I think ultimately NPS.
Well, that's awesome because it really does say that you're measuring what's important to you, which is the experience, which is where you were at this last leg of the journey. And of course, there's advantages in number of leaves or duration of leaves, and some of those more mechanical, tracking elements. But the fact that the focus is on the experience is very consistent with what you just said. This last leg of the journey was looking like. I think maybe just as we're thinking about bringing this to a close a little bit, I know that I have shared with you that we had a leave survey that we're recently now just pulling together some results for, and trying to get at the whole idea that leave is painful and leave is one of the biggest contributors to payroll noise and payroll issues and payroll problems. And I'm sorry that we didn't have the results queued up ahead of this particular conversation, Keith. But thank you, because I think you helped me actually in participating in that and took a look at it.
Yeah. So what I'd say is, so I'm excited to see the results when they come out. I thought the survey itself helped answer the question of why is leave administration such a pain point when you look at, hey, the question being, how many leave types do you have? And one of the choices is 20 plus, or how many providers and carriers are involved in managing it? And one of the choices is 5 plus. You can very quickly see that there's an exponential number of places where something can go wrong.
Right.
So it's not hard to see why it's complicated. I do think that if you keep thinking about it from a human perspective, it creates a lot of opportunity to address some of the complexities and get a better experience. But I'm curious to see what your survey brings back, Julie. I think it'll tell us some great stuff.
Awesome. Well, it'll be fun. And Pete was a huge hand. We kind of thought about the questions together before we rolled it out. So also looking forward to it. And I think just even being able to hear your story and where you've been in the leave weeds has been probably inspirational to a number of folks who feel like they're in the weeds and why, or there's no way out.
And I will say there is definitely a way out. It wasn't easy for us, and it was a journey, but I will say there is definitely a way out.
There you go. Words of inspiration to folks who are drowning and maybe trying to find the job satisfaction in what they're doing.
Yeah. Congratulations to those that love it. You mentioned having folks that were really into it and got behind it. I think that's great because it's always been the driest thing for me, man.
Pete says that, and yet payroll, he is super geeked
I
about. So
know. It doesn't make any sense.
How many people have said that to you about payroll, right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Right.
I
So
know.
there are people very excited about it, and that is one of the things that was recently added as a certification program for the team. So the case managers are
That's
getting
awesome.
certified so they can think about it from a career pathing perspective and a personal growth.
Yeah. No, it's important stuff. And it's only getting harder with the way compliance is changing and all of that, right? And employee demands and expectations. So yeah, you got to nail this. You got to get it right or else it's going to be painful.
yeah, so why don't we, before we go, Keith, I think we're going to be trying to figure out how we can connect folks to you for other conversations. What's next for you? Where are you headed?
That's great. So the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. And the ending part is Keith Christensen 379. It turns out there's a few Keith Christensens out there, but the easiest way again to find me is on LinkedIn. And I'm more than happy to connect with people and help them strategically think through HR challenges. What's next for me is still a work in progress. So I'm searching for my next HR corporate leader role, whether as a CHRO at a mid to large size company or an HR ops leader at a big, messy, complicated company. I'm looking for an organization where I am mission aligned and can amplify the culture and positively contribute to impact the business.
That's awesome. Yeah. Keith, you ought to really consider creating a leaves playbook, like a guide for, could sell that, or as a consultant for, I'm sure, to help people with this, because this is a very hard process and not many companies get it right. that I've studied, to be honest with you, and that they always need help.
There's some very smart leave practitioners out there that I've had the benefit of knowing who helped along the way with some of this journey. So I'm not turning it into
Yeah,
an advertisement for anyone, but there were some really smart people out there, Pete. Um, and I was happy enough to go along on the journey with them and make sure we stayed focused on the employee experience.
yeah. Well, good for you, man, and I'm sure you're better for it. And it sounds like you've learned a lot, man. I've learned a bunch just being here. So thank you so much for being a part of this, man. We'll make sure we share your contact information too in the description if people want to get in touch. And yeah, share your knowledge. I think it's great.
Great. Well, thanks very much. Hey, it was great.
Yeah,
It was great being on. Thanks to both of you for having me. I really appreciate it. This
yeah.
was fun.
Julie, where are you going to be? Where while we wrap up here, where are you going to head next?
Oh goodness, let's see. Well, I'm just off the road a little bit, but I am actually working quite a bit these days with HR advisory, HR comp advisory, leave all the stuff that I do, and bringing that more broadly down market. So I know folks know that I'm historically involved with some of the biggest and the messiest, like CVS and Keith. But being able to bring that down market, and I already do about a third of everything that I touch is smaller scale, and so our organization has a lot going on there, and I've been working a lot with down market clients lately. So
Yeah,
that's been kind of my jam.
yeah, awesome. You speaking anywhere anytime soon? Any events?
I am, but I'm just coming off the road, so I can't even. I mean, I know I'm doing the SSOW in at the end of March. That's the Shared Services and Outsourcing Week.
Yeah,
I do that all the time,
I'm jealous. I've never been to that one.
and then Pete, like you're doing a lot of ADP stuff. I have a ADP Global Partner Summit at the end of February, so I'll be hopping around doing provider things and industry things.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well,
How about you?
I got a few things going on. Just did a earned wage access discussion with some executives for The Source by Daily Pay. We did a webinar, and that was fun. We talked the change sort of element of this, and adopting modern technology, what it's like to sort of overcome obstacles from people maybe thinking that it's not going to work, or you know how it is, right? There's always an aversion to staying with the way things are. So we talked a bit of change and pushing and dealing with pushback and resistance to modern technology. So that's a good one you can catch on the Source website, the dailypay.com website. ADP, speaking of mention of ADP, I'm headed over to Rethink in London very soon. So I'll have a good recap of that, or what I learned there. If you're familiar with that, that's ADP's multinational enterprise level customer base conference, if you will. So excited to see ADP and some of its partners. I've already had a few people reach out and ping me. I'm hoping to do maybe some conversations for the show. So we'll see if we can get some stuff recorded and bring some perspectives back from that. And then, I'm doing the iSolved Masterclass. I'm doing a payroll masterclass on February 22nd, so you can sign up for that. Doing that with iSolved and their People Heroes group. So, join in on that. And one thing I just want to make sure everybody may or may not be aware of, it looks like the HR Tech virtual conference version of the HR Tech conference, which was slated for Feb 27 to 29. I was speaking at that, doing a talk on the fundamentals of HR and payroll technology and kind of what's evolving with HCM and payroll. That's been moved. It sounds like they're going to move that out to June. So that'll be a summer virtual event. So look for HR Tech virtual in June. And I'll be there. Same presentation. All the keynotes, I believe, are going to be the same. So be sure to just follow us over there a couple months later. So
That's interesting. The number of events are kind of shifting around from their usual spots this
Yeah.
year. So I think
And more.
everybody-
There's a lot
yeah.
more events. I'm finding new ones. I'm hearing about new
Yes.
ones. So I know Unleash is really expanding their
Yeah.
stuff. HR Tech is doing, I heard Europe now. So it's going to be a big year. I think we're going to be on the road a bit. So it'll be fun.
Absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
Well, this
stay
is
tuned.
great.
We'll share.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Keith, again for joining us. And Julia, as always, it's great to see you. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon.